Jeff Koinange, and this is Jeff Koinange live by the poolside of the Intercontinental Hotel. We've left the roof, come down to the poolside because this is a bench you simply do not want to miss. We're doing a report card check on the state of the nation. Everything from the censure motion by MPs of Lands Minister Charity Ngilu to the controversial media bill by MPs that's heading to the president's guest, to the elephant in the room that never seems to go away. We're talking about the ICC and everything else in between. We have a great lineup of guests, folks, and I hope you've gotten your dictionaries and thesauruses and all the other equipments you need for my first guest, because this man talks it like nobody else, and he makes sense when he does that. You're gonna need a pen and paper on top of that, because it's a bench you simply do not want to miss. He may have been the former anti-corruption czar, but there's nothing former about this man's English. Sit back, folks. 3 initials, PLO, as in PLO Lumumba. Good to see you, my brother.
Good to see you, Jeff.
Already, Lona Irungu is saying, I hope everyone has a thesaurus on standby.
That is Lona for you.
Donald Keep Career says, looking forward to seeing my friend Professor PLO
that
on
is
the bench.
Don, my friend.
Good to see you, my brother.
Good to see you.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
And you know, we need to talk about some serious issues that are plaguing this country. Yes. This country that we've been talking about forever, about being on takeoff, on the runway, waiting to take off. And yet we keep being held back. Let's start with this recent motion by the MPs. I mean, it literally happened hours ago. MPs censuring the land minister. And now this is heading to the president, and it's his call. Have these people gone rogue on us?
Jeff, you've got to look at the nation as a nation in a midlife crisis. And if a nation is in a midlife crisis, there are a number of things that happen, some good, some bad. But to speak specifically to the question of the censure, my view is that it's within the competence of Parliament to do so. And in the civilized world, when a member of the executive has been censured by the legislature, what the president must then do, as a matter of course, is to require that individual to tender their resignation in a civilized way. And if they don't, that individual would ordinarily be sacked. I do not know whether ours can be described as a civilized nation in matters such as those.
Absolutely, PLO, because I was about to say, this is Kenya. Nobody resigns.
Yes.
Nobody resigns.
In Kenya, they normally say, "I'd rather die than resign." But remember that we have a new constitutional dispensation. Remember, Jeff, you've said that we have been on the runway for too long. And if this country is to realize our potential to be great in fact and not to be great in prospect, we've got to do certain things in a totally different way. And I am of the considered view that democracy is ordinarily underpinned by the vigilance of the population. The tragedy of this country is that we are so divided, we are so ethnicized, that we are incapable of seeing things from an objective perspective. And that is what we must liberate ourselves from. This country deserves to be led by men and women who will do the right thing. But remember, in the last 50 years, on many occasions, we have canonized thieves and demonized saints. And that is what we must stop doing if this country is to go forward.
Correct, because look at some of the leaders we produce, PLO. Leaders who go slapping each other around in public. Leaders who go, really degrading the notion of leadership. And, and some people say, it's the leaders that we deserve. We get what we deserve.
And I agree, we get what we deserve. I wrote a book called A Call for Hygiene in Kenyan Politics. If the population elects leaders on the basis of the size of the clan, on the basis of their ethnic extraction, on the basis of the depth of their pocket, then you are going to get rogues. You're going to get individuals who will engage in activities which are inimical to good order and to civilization. And Kenyans must ask this question. When you have a vote, in a manner of speaking, you have the ability to buy a Mercedes-Benz. Then you buy a tuk-tuk and you expect the tuk-tuks to behave like a Mercedes-Benz? It can't happen.
No.
There is no abracadabra when people go to Parliament. You put in somebody who does not understand what this country needs, you get the wrong result.
Yeah.
So the nation must interrogate itself. It is we Kenyans who must interrogate ourselves.
And how come every time we have an election, PLO, every time there's that euphoria, there's that optimism, there's that hope, and then months down the line, and it's been about 6 to 9 months since these folks came into office, there's so much disappointment, there's so much expectation that we have not achieved yet.
But Jeff, look at it this way. How are we mobilized? We are mobilized from an ethnic perspective. The Luhya are organized as Luhyas, the Luos as Luos, the Kikuyus as Kikuyus, the Kambas as Kambas, so that the leaders look at the population and their tribes as collateral which they bring to the political mortgage market. And once they come to the mortgage market, then they share the spoils. So we are co-authors of our own misfortune. The good men and women who ought to serve this country have the chance of a snowball in hell. And that is what we must guard against. Somebody told me that the tragedy of Africa is when everybody else presents their first 11, Africa presents its 11th 11. And that is the tragedy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're going to touch on the media bill, but I'm going to talk about it more with Kiprono Kitoni later. But the fact that these MPs would pass what we are calling, and anyone who looks at it knows it's draconian, for lack of a better word. You probably like that word, draconian.
Draconian,
yes.
Indeed.
Why would they do that? Are they upset at something? Do they have an axe to grind with us, or do they just want to control the fourth estate?
You know, Jeff, it used to be said in Greek of old that when God wants to destroy a nation, it first makes the leaders mad. And that is what happens. In the 21st century, in my view, you cannot enact a piece of legislation such as we see. I don't want to belabor the point because I think the president of this country has heard Kenyans, and I refuse to believe that he's going to sign that bill. But one can understand when people become megalomaniacs, when people become egotistical, when people choose to do things and they don't want to be questioned, then they muzzle the press. There is no shortage of individuals who have described the significance of the press in democracy. I remember Edmund Burke saying that there are 3 estates: the first estate, the second estate, the third estate, and yonder sits the fourth estate, and the greatest of them all.
That's right, in the galleries.
Oh, in the gallery, indeed.
Yes.
And therefore, without belaboring the issue, one must say that that particular piece of legislation belongs to the museum alongside the spinning wheel.
Where's my pen and paper? Okay, ICC.
Yes.
We knew the situation, the scene had been set for us before March the 4th. For the last 6 to 9 months, very little has moved because of the ICC. The elephant in the room that just refuses to go away.
You know, Jeff, when one talks about the ICC, this is the one area where objectivity has disappeared completely. But let us contextualize Kenya's presence in the ICC. After the Waki report, Waki, in his wisdom, said Kenya should have the opportunity of establishing a tribunal. The Kenyan parliamentarians, in their wisdom, but in my view, in their lack of wisdom, took the view that they wanted to take us to the ICC. And I can still hear those words, don't be vague, let it be Hague. We went to the Hague, and our argument at that time was that we did not have the capacity to dispense justice. We are now at the Hague. We are good citizens of the world. The Hague is telling us, cooperate with us, and I'm saying that is in the interest of this country that we cooperate with the Hague. Nobody is saying that the deputy president is guilty. Nobody is saying that His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta is guilty. But we are saying that we have found ourselves there. And I can still hear President Uhuru Kenyatta during the presidential interview saying, this is a personal matter that I will deal with. And I have no doubt in my mind that President Kenyatta can deal with it. He has a team of good lawyers. I believe that Deputy President Ruto has a team of good lawyers, and the sooner this matter is brought to closure, the better.
Yeah.
I do not know the wisdom that governs the individuals who want the matter to be deferred. But if you defer it, you are only postponing the thing for 1 year. And I can understand the need for President Kenyatta to concentrate in governing this country. But I am also of the considered view that the sooner this matter is dealt with and concluded, the safer we are, so that President Kenyatta and Deputy President Ruto can have the opportunity to serve this country without destruction. We do not want to say it, but there is a sense in which we can see that certain things that ought to be happening are not happening.
Yeah.
We have not had ambassadors appointed in very important posts for the last 6 months. We have not had certain parastatals dealt with. I know there are proposals for reform, because these two individuals whom we have entrusted with the task of leading our country are facing monumental charges, and one can understand they are only human. But let us be honest as a nation, that as we speak now, we are members of the Statute of Rome, and it is incumbent upon us to behave as if we are members.
And what do you tell President Kenyatta's colleagues in the region, PLO, who tell him, you know what, stand your ground? These people have to know who we are. This ICC is anti-African. You will not go to The Hague as long as we're here.
I hold the view that the individuals who are telling President Kenyatta that are not telling President Kenyatta the truth. I hold the view that there is a way in which we can engage the international community, the international community. We can engage the ICC. We can engage the UN in a manner with the firmness that will open their eyes, not with the arrogance that will inflame their anger. And this is what I think we should do. This is what diplomacy is all about. And I believe that if we take that route, the international community is not blind. The international community knows that President Kenyatta has the mandate of the people of Kenya. The international community knows that President Kenyatta should be given the opportunity to govern. The international community can indeed ensure that there are necessary excusals for President Kenyatta to attend to matters of the nation. But to tell President Kenyatta not to attend when we are members of the international community and we are bound by the Statute of Rome is to misguide President Kenyatta. And I, who is a patriot of this country, would advise otherwise.
And speaking of patriot, PLO, what happened at Westgate? We've talked about it. We've summarized it. We've done everything about it. And we know that somebody dropped the ball. We know that the president should crack the whip. We know that heads should roll. A month and change later, not a single head has rolled.
You know, sometimes, and I'm quite certain that there are those who are going to say it is very easy to say it from the bench, that when you are inside the kitchen, it is so hot there, the decisions that have to be made are so monumental, are so critical. But there is a sense in which we have sinned and fallen short of the glory of this country. I remember at one time, Ali Hassan Mwinyi, who was then not a president but a minister in charge of prison, resigned on the ground only that there had been an escape from prison. He said that he was taking moral responsibility. I remember at one time a minister in charge of transport in India resigned on the ground only that there had been a train crash.
Yeah.
It would appear that in this, my beloved Kenya, to resign is to commit suicide. To take political responsibility is to commit suicide.
Yeah.
And I hold the view that we should do that which is good and right. There is no shortage of good Kenyans who can serve this country well. And I'm not saying that those who were in different positions during the Westgate made a mistake. Remember that the terrorist only has to get it right once. And remember that it's not possible to have 100% security. But the truth is, head should have rolled.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
We keep talking about this, PLO. When did the rain start beating us? And I see a couple of drops coming down.
Oh, it did. I hope it will not disrupt us.
Correct. When did that rain start beating us, PLO?
You know, the rain started beating us a while ago. The rain started beating us when we started paying homage to the gods of negative ethnicity. The rain started beating us when we started paying homage to the gods of corruption. The rain started beating us when we started paying homage to the gods of nepotism. The rain started beating us when we started paying homage to mediocrity. The rain started beating us when we threw meritocracy out of the window. We must now come and ask ourselves, what is it that we must do? We must now say that men and women will be allowed to serve in the position that they deserve because of the content of their character, not because of their ethnic extraction. We must now as a nation believe that men and women will be judged not on the basis of the depth of their pocket and their ill-gotten wealth, but because they have the capacity to serve. Once we begin to do this, this country will realize our potential. The headwind that now stops us from realizing our potential is that we are doing the wrong things and we know it.
And those who try to do the right thing, PLO, because you tried in your capacity as the anti-corruption czar, you tried to change things, and the forces of evil, if you will, wouldn't let you.
Oh, let me tell you, one of the most difficult things to be in this country is to be honest and to speak the truth. Today, when I look at the Senate, I will not name them, but I see some of the individuals whose only claim to fame is that they are corrupt, but they sit at the Senate. When I look at the National Assembly, I know and I see a number of them whose only claim to fame is that they are corrupt. The great Greek philosopher Aesop was right. We hang the petty thieves and elect the big ones into public office. And that is a tragedy of gigantic proportions.
Yes. Will that day change? Will the day come when we'll see a change in that PLO? Because we're so hopeful each time. And we always think, you know what? Because someone sent me a tweet, or it was on Facebook earlier on. He says, why don't educated, smart, honest people get elected to public office?
You know, Jeff, we have such high tolerance for the corrupt.
And mediocre.
And the mediocre. So today, we elect a thief, and if you want to arrest them, the population will tell you, he is the thief, but he's our thief. So we must change that. But the tragedy is that we are not just about to do it. When I listen to the news and when I watch the television and I read the newspaper, I still hear some individuals whom I respect saying, it is our time. We, the Luhias, must provide the president. We, the Luos, must provide the president. We, the Kambas, must provide the president. Of what value is ethnic extraction to the service of the president? I want a good man or woman to be in a position of service, not a position of privilege. And until we exercise the ghost of ethnicity, we are not going to realize our potential. And it's not lost on me, Jeff, that the commission that was headed by my good friend Mzalendo Kibunja is now in comatose. The Kenya Human Rights Commission is in comatose. The institutions that were created to ensure that people were enlightened have been allowed to disappear into oblivion. It is as if we want to go back to the Egypt of do-nothingism. That is a tragedy that we must not allow to happen.
Absolutely, and then throw in this draconian media bill, and we're going back 30 years.
Not 30 years. We are going back to the days of Adolf Hitler and Adolf Himmler and Goebbels. Must we allow that? The tragedy that we have in this country also is the middle class.
Yeah, the complacent.
You and me.
Yes.
When the roads are rough, we buy a four-wheel drive. When we don't have water, we buy tanks. When the schools are not doing well, we take them to private schools. And then we have panic buttons in our houses, which we don't even remember when the thieves come, because we are so panicked that we don't even remember. The middle class must wake up from its slumber and remember that when the ship is sinking, it will sink with everybody. Throughout history, the countries have always changed when the middle class liberated themselves from narrow provincialism of ethnicity to decide and do that which is good and right. Kenyan middle class must wake up from their Kalenjinism, from their Luism, from their Kikuism and Luhyaism in order to create a Kenyanness. We are 50. I know we are in midlife crisis, but in midlife crisis, you can choose to follow the right direction. This is the time.
And the alternative PLO would be the inmates taking over the asylum.
As it must be. You put it so well. the inmates must take over this asylum and to inject some sobriety into it. And can it be done? It can be done. But we must begin to do certain things right. Remember, for example, in the area of remuneration, our MPs browbeat Serem and our commission and our members of parliament relative to our GDP are the best paid in the world. Now we have our MCs saying we'll not go to work until we are paid better than our doctors, until we are paid better than our professors. What happened to service? What happened to love for country? When did we make public service a site for enrichment? What happened? These are the questions that we must ask, and ask boldly. But we are not asking those questions.
No.
We are not asking.
We become complacent, PLO. We become scared. We become too comfortable in our skins.
But how many of us are comfortable? What is this thing we call comfort? What is this thing we call happiness? When people are excited, they think they are happy. Kenyans are not happy. The cost of living is very high. The middle class cannot afford their mortgages. They cannot afford school fees. They cannot get jobs. We have graduates living with their parents up to age 40. There is a problem. We have an opportunity. And I believe the administration of President Kenyatta must re-examine itself only 6 months after being in office and ask very difficult questions. Are we headed in the right direction? On the 12th day of December, we'll be celebrating our Jubilee. Jubilee means new beginning. What are those new beginnings that we must be dealing with? What is happening to our economy? What is happening to our security situation? What are we doing with our young men and women? What is happening to our nation in terms of national cohesion? These are things that we must put on the table and must discuss and must have a solution to them.
I come back to what I was talking about earlier on, PLO, and that's Kenya being on the runway. There's a very interesting picture in the Star newspaper, I think yesterday or the day before, the president and the deputy inside the cockpit of an aircraft. What was most interesting, I don't know if many people noticed, was the pilot usually sits on the left-hand side. Ruto was sitting on the left-hand side, but you know that's an aside. How long are we going to remain on this runway waiting for takeoff?
We must choose, because we may be on a runway, but unknown to us, we may have a car on the runway so that it will never fly at all. So the first question that we must ask is, what do we have on the runway? Is it capable of flying? And if it is, why is it that this drug is remaining for too long? Chinua Achebe was right. He said the problem of Africa is simply and squarely a problem of leadership. And I'm saying that now that we have a new leadership, a younger leadership, we have a new constitutional dispensation, we have a new architecture of governance, we have a young and vibrant youth. What are we going to do about it? And I've already said it. Our problem is, among other things, negative ethnicity. The other problem is corruption. The other one is nepotism. The other one is wastefulness. We have one of the largest parliaments in this part of the world. We have a Senate, which I debate whether it should exist. I know this will not make certain people happy. But recently, the Northern Islanders were asking the question, do we need a Senate in Norway? These are things that we must begin to debate so that we bring the public wage bill down. In other words, these are not the times when we must say things to please people. We must say certain things that are good and right so that they are examined in order to make this plane fly.
But PLO, sometimes when you ask the youth who they want to be like when they grow up, they'll tell you, I want to be like Sonko.
Yes.
I want to be like Kabogo. I want to be like Joho. You know, those are the leaders they want to be like.
I have no problem with the individuals that you've mentioned. I don't know them very well. But what I know is that until the day we introduce hygiene in Kenyan politics, until the day that we have voters who are going to elect people on the basis of the agenda that they are going to undertake, until the day that we remove dirty money from politics, and as I said earlier, until the day that men are judged not by the depth of their pockets, then we are never going to have good leaders. Corazon Aquino of Philippines once said that until the day the electorate is capable of discerning that which is good and right, democracy is nothing but a conspiracy of fools. Kenya must choose whether they want to be bribed to vote or whether they want to vote men and women who will do good and right.
Absolutely.
For the moment, good men have the chance of a snowball in hell.
And then there's an old saying, PLO, I'm sure you know this, evil prospers when good men do nothing.
Oh yeah.
Let's go a tweet. Kevin Kimother says, PLO is a realist. Besides being an old boy at Pumwani, he is my role model.
Oh yeah, that is correct. I was at Pumwani.
Okay. Well, Stella Kagutanganga, you say, what happened to service and love for country?
Indeed, Stella is so right. What happened? In India, Mahatma Gandhi is the father of the nation. He never held any public office. Martin Luther King never held any public office. Mother Teresa of Calcutta never held any public office. In this country, we kill and die in order to occupy public office, in order to have sirens and outriders and other privileges. Is all vanity of vanities, King Solomon says in the book of Ecclesiastes.
I love it. Ladama Olekina says, no one cares about service. We are all too greedy to think about issues. We are all thieves. And when given a chance, we kill.
Ladama is so right. We have all sinned and fallen short of the glory of this country and of God.
Dan Brousson, could it be that even our Senate and Parliament are in comatose?
Sometimes even in comatose, limbs move. It's quite possible.
Mohammed Weliye, he says, Venezuela recently appointed a minister for happiness. Government of Kenya should appoint PLO as our minister of happiness.
In Bhutan, they have what they call the gross national happiness index. So that beyond the GDP and the per capita income, we've got to go to Korokosho and Mukuruka Njenga and Mukuruka Yaba and in the different parts of this country and ask them, are you happy when your members of parliament are the best paid in the world and you cannot afford food? When your MCAs are demanding that they be paid $250,000 and our teachers are paid a paltry 40,000 Kenya shilling? We must ask these questions. We must ask this question.
And yet, a mere dozen years ago, when Kibaki came into office, Kenyans were voted the most optimistic people on the planet.
Oh, how I long that those days could be relieved, and how I long that we as a country could have something that we call Kenya that we truly want to protect in our hearts and minds.
One more. Kodida says, we are steadily moving into a nothingness state.
You know, sometimes I don't want to be too pessimistic because sometimes when I travel to different parts of Africa and I come back at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, I said, oh God, we are bad, but not so bad.
Yeah.
So there is something that we can do in this country. We have the ingredients, but it's like having flour for making chapati and water on the side. You've got to knead the dough and make the chapati. The choice is ours. We have a fire in this country, but we must decide what should we use to put off the fire. Is it oil or water? For the moment, I think we are using oil.
More oil than water.
And we must make that choice.
Bottom line, PLO, is there hope?
Yeah, there is hope. You know, I'm also very spiritual as I grow older. Paul says that 3 things remained: love, faith, and hope. We cannot afford the luxury of hopelessness. In this region, despite the things that we are saying, we are still the natural leaders. And I have no doubt in my mind that if we put the ingredients right, we will be the natural leaders. But we must make the right choices. One of the right choices is that we must allow Tanzania to be a part of East African community. One of the right choices is that one must not tell us to close our oil refinery in Mombasa to have one built in Uganda. One of the right choices is that we must make people participate. One of the right choices is that we must create employment for young men and women. One of the right choices is that we must exercise the ghost of ethnicity. One of the right choices is that everybody must feel that they have a sense of belongingness in this government. And I have to be very blunt in this way. In the composition of his government, there is a feeling in this country which must be made known to President Kenyatta and Vice President Ruto. There are communities who feel excluded. They must not allow that to happen. Every Kenyan must feel that they have a place at the dinner table. That is the only way in which the country will be safe for now and in future.
On that note, PLO, I could talk to you all day, my friend.
Thank you, Jeff.
Keep hope alive.
We must keep hope alive. It will be well. It will be well. It will be well.
It will be well.
Thank you.
Thank you, PLO.
Thank you.
Goodness. PLO says we need to knead the dough. And he quotes everyone from Chinua Achebe to Aesop and everyone in between. There is a lot of hope, folks, but the road ahead is no doubt bumpy. And all hands have to be on deck on this one if we're to build the Kenya that we keep saying that we want. Whoa! Keep sitting back, folks, because we're going to take a break now on Jeff Koinange Live, and coming up, he's chairman of the Media Owners Association, and he's not a happy chappy, especially after those MPs, I'm not going to call them what Boniface Mwangi called them, but maybe I will after the break, after they passed that draconian media bill and wants to take us back to the dark ages. Don't even think of touching that dial, folks. The Bench on Jeff Koinange Live at the Intercontinental. We'll be back in a moment.